Here we're going to be looking at how to make an animated GIF in Photoshop. So the Adobe site has a really good, really clear tutorial on how to do this in Photoshop. They also have some files available if you want to practice with doing this tutorial with the actual files that they're using. So the goal is to actually make an image that looks like this, so a moving image that's saved as an image file, not as a video. So the first thing that we're going to do is open up Photoshop, and you'll look something like this. We want to import our photos, but we don't want to import them one by one. So we're going to actually go to File and then Scripts, and then we're going to go to Load Files into Stack, and a window will pop up that looks like this. We're going to go to Browse, and then I have in a single folder, I have all of the images that I'm going to use to make the GIF file. To keep this a little bit more lightweight, I'm just going to use about half of those instead of using all of them. So I'll click OK here, and you can see that on the right side, they're going to open up all of those images as layers in your Photoshop file, and it will keep them in the order that you loaded them into. So it'll get rid of that background layer, and then you can see that it is importing each one of those as an individual photo on the layer. So in order to make this into an animated GIF, the first thing we have to do is go to Window at the top, and then go to Timeline. So by default, if you've never done this before, it will say Create Video Timeline. Here we're going to want to click the arrow down to the right of that and go to Create Frame Animation and click that. So it's going to basically make one frame out of whichever layer that you had selected. So if we go to the options on the right side, this will drop menu, and we can go to Make Frames from Layers. So this will make an individual frame in our animated GIF from all of those layers that we have. So you can see now really easily that we have created a moving image out of this. So we have 17 frames, and we're going to be able to run it like this. So if you wanted to basically decrease the speed at which this is moving, you can click on one of your photos, hold shift, and then go over to the right, and then you can change this little delay. So you can see here, if we go to 0.2 seconds, it'll be much more choppy. So if you wanted to extend it out, this is a good way to do it. Obviously, it's going to only be as resolute as many photos as you have. So if you want to make a 5-second long video, but it only has 2 frames, you're going to have to add a much bigger delay, and it's going to be obviously very, very choppy, versus if you have 100 photos and you want to make a 3-second film, it's going to be much more smooth. Be aware of file size in that case. So sort of figure out how long you want the GIF to be, and then how many images you may need for that specific project. So I'm going to change this back to no delay here. Another reason that this may be useful for something like a studio project is if you want to add a pause in certain areas like this. So we can go to the end basically and add a pause. So if we start this from the beginning, you'll see it's moving at normal speed, and then we get to the end and we have a little bit of a pause, and then we go back to the beginning. So this could be useful to sort of show a final image as how the project came out, or to pause if you're planning to be speaking over the GIF. So we'll stop this, and we'll get rid of the delay on here. So another thing about the GIF is that because it's looping, you're going to get to the end here, and then you're going to go right back to the beginning. So depending on what you're looking at, whether you want it to do that or whether you want it to actually then go backwards at this point. So if we went forwards 1 through 17, then backwards basically 18 through 34, and then back to 1, we would basically get a much more smooth scenario. So here I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to highlight all of these guys. And we're going to do copy frames, and then we'll paste them. So we're going to paste them after selection. So again, this is only necessary if you're trying to make it loop a little bit more smoothly. So here we're going to take a look, and you see our 17 and 18 layers are different photos. So if we think about this 1 through 17, then 18 should actually be a duplicate of 17. So if we go and we highlight all of these layers, and we click on our options, and we go to reverse frames, and then we go to 17 and 18, we'll see that we have actually the same image. So when we go through this, you'll see that there's no real choppy portion of this. So it just sort of keeps going back and forth. Obviously, there's a little pause when it goes back to the beginning, but other than that, so that would create that. So one of the really nice things about using Photoshop to do this kind of work is that if you go into your adjustments, you can still make really simple overall adjustments to the file once it's actually in this GIF format. So we can go into our adjustments and change a bunch of these things around and change the overall look of it. once we're actually in the file. So it maintains quite a bit of editability as you're going through it. And then obviously if we don't want these, we can hide these layers. So once we're ready to export this out, we're going to go to File, Export, and then Save for Web. And I don't really change any of the settings here. So we have GIF as our selection, and then by default it's going to be whatever image size that you already have. So I don't usually change this unless I'm going for a specific image size. If I am, I'll usually change it in the canvas size in the actual file. So I would go to image and then canvas size, and I would change it here instead of changing it in the final one. This gives you a lot more ability to actually preview what your final file is going to look like, as opposed to just doing it during the export phase. So here we're going to click save, and we will save this. And depending on how big your file is, it'll take a second to save. And then when we look at how the file came out, it doesn't preview particularly well in Windows Media Player. So that will be, if you're on a Windows machine, the default way that opens. So I usually right click on it and do open with, and then a program like Internet Explorer actually works pretty well for something like this. So you can actually see the reversal happening here, which is not the best. So in order to make them really, really smooth, you would probably need quite a few more frames, and you would need basically the full range of motion of what's happening here. But that's basically how in Photoshop you create an animated GIF. That's how you would go into exporting, and then getting it to be an actual GIF file, and then from there you would have the flexibility to upload that to whatever platform that you're using to display your work.